Spectra Energy is the third biggest U.S. pipeline operator by market value. The company reported earnings earlier, and second quarter profits fell after a drop in oil and natural gas prices. Gregory Ebel, the company's CEO, joins us now from Spectra's headquarters in Houston. Greg, glad to have you with us. So are you disappointed with the earnings, or do you just see it as a function of oil prices?
Well, there's no doubt that we had expected a decline in commodity prices versus last year. You'll recall that this time last year, the second quarter, $124 oil. This year, it was around $60. So it was not unexpected for us. I think the key is when you strip out the change in commodity prices, you actually see our core businesses up about 8% year on year and quarter on quarter. So we think that's pretty good growth.
So can you reiterate then the guidance that you gave earlier, $1.15 rather, as far as the second half goes?
Right, and based on what we see today in terms of improvement in the economy, improvement in commodity prices, Canadian dollar strengthening, and some real interest savings that we've seen, as well as the businesses growing, we feel very good about our $1.15 target for the full year.
Where do you think oil prices are likely to go? I know it's asking you a crystal ball question, but obviously your results are directly tied to that. Where do you think we settle by the end of the year?
Well, first of all, only about 20% of our earnings this year come from those commodity-sensitive businesses. But for the full year, we had predicted that oil would be in about the $55 range. Obviously, we're through that at this point in time. I actually think oil might be a little bit ahead of itself, and I think what you're seeing is a variety of impacts on oil, not the least of which is the decline in the U.S. dollar.
What about natural gas liquids? I mean, this is a significant part of your business.
Right. I mean, natural gas, we look at gas being in the $4 to $6 range from a long-term perspective. Day-to-day natural gas prices don't impact us, but obviously being in the $4 to $6 range says we need more natural gas infrastructure, something we build. This year we'll put in place about 10 projects for $650 million. In the last couple of years, we've put about $3 billion of new natural gas infrastructure in place, and based on that, I see about $1 billion worth of expansion opportunities for 2010.
So you would say then 2010 is going to be a better year than this year was overall for the company?
I would expect that you'd see nice growth in earnings for 2010, again, based on the expansion projects we see and what I think is a more normal, levelized playing field with respect to commodities. I think we would all admit pretty dramatic change in the last 12 months, not something you'd expect to see on an ongoing basis every 12 months.
Now, we know geographically you're focused in the U.S. and Canada. Do you plan to, I hear you say expansion, does that include North America? Does that include other areas?
Well, we're really focused on Canada and the United States. So we're really a North American play. I think the history of pipeline companies, U.S. pipeline companies going abroad outside of North America is not particularly good, and there are plenty of opportunities here in North America, and as natural gas becomes a more and more important fuel, particularly in a low carbon intensive economy, we think there are great opportunities here and therefore great growth for Spectra.
And Greg, just as you sit at the top of a company, we're asking all our CEOs this, I mean, in general, prospects for the economic recovery, you have to have an opinion. I heard you say 2010 is going to be a better year for your company, but where do you see the U.S. economy right now?
Well, I still think you're going to have pretty sluggish growth. I mean, as long as we continue to see job losses, as long as we continue to see some of the tough situations in manufacturing, I think it's going to be a slow grind out. But it looks like we've bottomed and we've turned the corner, and I think that's positive from a long-term infrastructure perspective, which is the business we're in.
Greg, we thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Greg Ebel there from Spectra Energy.